Happening in just moments, Kamala Harris about to rally the troops at the former Biden campaign HQ in Wilmington, Delaware. She's already walked in the building, as you can see there. She'll be speaking to the Democratic staffers. She will now inherit after President Biden withdrew from the race. Harris has been rapidly consolidating power, and in this case, speed wins. Working the phones like crazy to get Democrat after Democrat to fall in line, Nancy Pelosi becoming the latest to publicly back her. Harris also raking in the campaign cash, raising over $80 million in the first 24 hours. President Biden's stunning decision coming just 24 days after his disastrous debate changed everything, setting into motion an unprecedented mutiny of Democrats calling for him to drop out. The president defiant and bitter till the end. He reportedly dragged out his decision because he didn't think Kamala could defeat Donald Trump. But earlier, Harris had nothing but nice things to say about the president.
Our president, Joe Biden, wanted to be here today. He is feeling much better and recovering fast, and he looks forward to getting back on the road. And I wanted to say a few words about our president. Joe Biden's legacy of accomplishment over the past 3 years is unmatched in modern history. In one term, he has already, yes, you may clap. I am firsthand witness that every day our President Joe Biden fights for the American people, and we are deeply, deeply grateful for his service to our nation.
Top Democrats and would-be vice presidential picks taking to cable news to tout their support of Harris's candidacy. Watch here.
The vice president is smart and strong, which will make her a good president.
She's going to bring and breathe some life into this campaign.
She's someone who's gone toe-to-toe with people who bluster, people who bully, people who lie.
I'm going to work for her all over this country and do what I can to make sure we stop Donald Trump.
And Vice President Harris, Michigan voters have a presidential candidate we can count on to lower our costs, protect our freedoms.
My support of the vice president is because I've seen her in action.
But not every Democrat is on board the Kamala train. So far, Barack Obama has not lent his powerful endorsement. Neither has House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. He wants to speak to her first. Team Trump already sharpening its attacks against Kamala Harris.
Kamala was in on it. She covered up Joe's obvious mental decline. Kamala knew Joe couldn't do the job, so she did it.
Okay, there's been a lot of news in the last 28 hours. And Greg, we haven't had a chance to hear from you yet, so let's turn to you about Biden withdrawing and Kamala Harris trying to just wrap this nomination up.
Well, I haven't really been paying attention.
Okay.
No, but I think it's hard, obviously, very hard to be sympathetic to Joe because he led the charge in prosecuting his political opposition, which was very banana republic. And this also feels very banana republic. So he just got hoisted once again on that petard thing. I think the Dems are boxed in. If they did this because Joe has dementia, then he has to resign. Mm-hmm. He's not fit. But if they did it because he's going to lose, then there goes the democratic process, and Fetterman is right. You know, Biden won the delegates. He's the nominee. You just can't cancel that because he's going to lose. There were a lot of people that thought Trump was going to lose after he got the nomination. He did, but he was the nominee. So that is, believe it or not, people, an attack on democracy. If they pull about, unless they say it was because of his health, which then means he has to resign. So if he stays in, then Kamala is not a legitimate candidate. There's also another box. To bolster Harris's chances, they need a strong, trustworthy VP. But you can't do that without overshadowing the top of the ticket. That's why Joe picked Kamala. You always pick someone that's not going to make you look bad. So how do you find a VP who is less competent than Kamala? What do? Do you nominate a toaster? This is going to be very difficult. And I love how the media is portraying Biden as a selfless hero. No, he refused to go. He was holding on to the curtains. You know, if his brain was in a vat of biochemicals and he was up in swing states, they'd be saying brain vat beats Hitler. So this was not about like character. This was about polling, and it's about a system, a corrupt system. They don't care who's running as long as the numbers say they're going to win and that they have a way to win. Finally, the New York Times have profound concerns about her electability. They said that the process of public scrutiny was ignored. What does that sound like to you? It's DEI. The obsession over identity instead of America created a situation where the process of public scrutiny was ignored. And now the Dems have little choice but to turn on each other if they disagree. But if you say she's not good enough, then what will you be called? A racist.
And there's probably a lot more of that to come. Jesse, you had a chance to talk to both Trump and Vance. This is a call about Vance talking about Kamala Harris. Watch it.
So they're going to cook up something at the convention. They might throw Gretchen Whitmer at you. They might throw Gavin Newsom at you. They might throw Michelle Obama at you.
Yeah, I wouldn't be worried about any of them. Look, they have bad policies. Forget about the people. They have an open border policy. They have a high tax policy. They have a bad military policy. The whole world is going woke. Their world is going woke. The Green New Scam, we're spending all our money on things that don't work. The whole thing is a mess. Our country, if we don't win this election, we may never have another election. I'm telling you, this may be our last election.
I was told I was going to get to debate Kamala Harris, and now President Trump's going to get to debate her. I'm kind of pissed off about that, if I'm being honest with you.
I like it that he has a sense of humor, but now, I guess we don't know who Vance will debate.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. I cannot wait for the Trump-Kamala Harris debate, Dana. It's going to be so good. So I feel like you're getting brainwashed, and we know we're being brainwashed, but they don't know that we know. And because they said this guy won more votes than anybody in American history, and he's FDR, but they just whacked FDR because FDR couldn't win re-election. It couldn't be his policies. His policies are popular, right? I mean, this guy's got the best policies. No, we all hate his policies. The country's a disaster. And now he has soup for brains. Because, last month, you guys said he was Einstein with great stamina. So what's actually going on here? What's actually going on is they rigged the primary and then detonated the guy during the debate and then held a gun to his head while he was in bed and forced him to sign a resignation letter while he had the Rona. And then all of a sudden, Kamala just swoops in with a statement already ready. Come on. She was in on it. Nancy went to his bed and said, we could do it the easy way or we could do it the hard way. And on Saturday, they came out with the FEC reports on the fundraising in June, and the Democrats didn't raise any money. No money. And then this poll came out in Michigan, and Trump was up 7 in Michigan. So this was man versus machine. He couldn't fight the machine. And they made Biden fire himself. It's the only person he ever fired. And he had to let himself go. And so Kamala comes in. They're still going to lose. They may lose less than they would have against Joe Biden, but she was in on the cover-up, and they're acting like there was no cover-up. They just basically are going to nominate the woman who lied to the whole country about how brain dead the president was, and we're supposed to trust this woman? This woman is on tape for hours saying Joe's sharp, and now we're supposed to believe what she says? Come on. The same people that told us that the laptop was fake and that Joe was really astute are now saying Kamala's a genius and she's going to beat Trump. I mean, this brainwashing has gotten so bad, even I can tell they're in there.
And you have nothing to watch.
And I have nothing up here.
Harold, what have you picked up since last night in terms of the fundraising? And is Kamala just going to be it, or could we actually have some sort of a contest here?
Good to be back. Fun being with you last week. I think the way she's handled, yesterday you and I were on, it seems like it was days ago now, but yesterday we were on to today. I've been impressed. I said yesterday on some of the shows, I thought what she did today in terms of her first public speaking engagement, she's not had a lot of good public speaking engagement. She's had, it's been uneven, to be diplomatic and nice about it. She was good today. She was strong today. She's had a great fundraising day. But let me take a step back. The Republicans had an unbelievable convention last week. I didn't think that in this short a period of time, the attention could shift as broadly and as swiftly and as sweepingly as it has. And that's what you want in politics. I would remind everybody around the table, we all know this, you don't run for office unless you want to win. So you're going to try your hardest to win. There is no doubt what happened 3.5 weeks ago with President Biden. He bombed that debate. We talked about it on this set. Many of us talked about him stepping down. I was not convinced when 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago now, when the Democrats said we're all for him and let's settle this. I was not persuaded that would be the case. The polling data showed that Democrats up and down the line were going to lose, including the House and the Senate. And when you mentioned, Greg, the money dried up, that was a critical point. And Democrats, I think, did something I didn't think they'd be able to do. It's interesting to hear you talk about the only person he's ever fired was himself. That's funny. But he decided to remove himself from the ticket. And now you have Kamala Harris. Now, I've said also on the show, I think Donald Trump's the best political athlete I've seen in a long, long time. He's not as good an athlete in the last 24 hours. She's gotten in his head a little bit. I think the idea of talking about her being on the fix and hiding things, she's the candidate now, and you're not gonna get her there. I think on the policy matters, the policy fronts, that's where their focus ought to be. I was reminded a little bit of the 28-3 Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl when the Patriots came back at the beginning of the second half. You better be careful because this is a very, very different race. I say to Republicans, I say to Democrats as well. Now, she's not out of the woods yet. You raised the point. We've got to get to the convention. She's already secured 1,100 of the delegates, which is more than half of what she needs in less than 24 hours. Some may say that means that this is a coronation. No, she's on the phones doing it. She's gotten a lot of endorsements. And I think that the thing that's going to matter most here in the next few days is whom she picks as VP, because it's the first decision she will make about what her administration will look like and how she will govern. And we all know it signals as to whether or not she will kowtow to one side of the party or not. I hope she chooses a governor. And I don't mean to be anything against Senator Kelly, but I want a governor who can lay out what he or she has done over the last 4 to 6 years, how they've created jobs, how they've improved education, how they've reduced drug use. We talked about it last night. Former President Bush is a former governor, former President Clinton, a former governor. So I like the start she's off to, and I think it's going to make for a great contest in the fall.
One of the things, Katie, that happened is like the Democrats have this bat signal that goes out, like, here's the new talking point. So after saying that Joe Biden was perfectly fine, and his age didn't matter at all, and he runs circles around them at the White House. Now, all of a sudden, this memo basically goes out that says Trump is now the oldest nominee in history. And it's so incredibly ridiculous because they actually seem to believe that cutesy ridiculousness like that might work. I don't think it's going to work.
Here's a guy who got shot last weekend and in the process of getting shot, got back up, pumped his fist, and was able to then go on to amazing convention for a week and pull that off. So it's just a silly comparison. It was never about the age or the number. It was clearly about cognitive ability. And on that note, I mean, where is Joe Biden? Right. He made this decision to stay as president, but to suspend his candidacy. And for 5 days, 6 days, we haven't seen the president on video. We haven't seen photos of him. We keep hearing a whole lot about his legacy, where his legacy right now is putting out a resignation for his campaign in a tweet. We haven't heard directly from him. His vice president is out at the White House today speaking before he has been speaking, while his doctor is saying that everything is fine and he's on the mend. So where's the president? If he's going to continue on for 6 months, Kamala Harris is still his vice president. And they still have to live with this idea that, well, what's the reason why he was suspending his candidacy, but he wants to remain as president? And you're going to hear more and more about behind the scenes, what was going on, and why he had to actually make that decision. He was losing in the polling to Donald Trump on the policy issues. He's also losing because people are very scared about his cognitive ability to remain the commander-in-chief. And that will exist today, and it will exist for the next 6 months as well.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.